Hello and welcome once again to a Let's Talk Idle, this time about Realm Grinder. Now, when it comes to idle games, Realm Grinder must be probably one of the deepest and most extensive one there is out there. You could play this one for months until, well, entirely new mechanics come into the game that suddenly change a lot about it. So, Realm Grinder starts out really simple, even though there's all this stuff to it right here. Really, you just have some buildings that generate money, and you can click the treasure to also generate money, and then you just buy more buildings and get some upgrades for your buildings. So it starts out really simple in that way. But then you also realize that there's something like the spells. And spells just, well, they can do all sorts of things. Most of them just make you produce more stuff, but there's some really select few that can do some really crazy things. But you generate mana per second, and then you can just cast a spell. Whoa, there you go. And later on in the game, you'll even find an upgrade that allows you to set spells on auto cast, so that you have certain rules under which conditions spells just automatically cast without you having to worry about this. So the whole spell casting aspect sort of like automates itself after a while. And something else about this game is there's something called the faction coins. Basically, instead of just only gaining money, like your gold, or coins as it's called here, you also gain the faction coins. And faction coins is the intro to what makes the Realm Grinder the Realm Grinder. So I'm gonna reset right here and show you what it's like from the start. Buy some random upgrades, doesn't really matter. I want to get to a point where I can show something. Okay, so when you start off the game, you'll be able to choose between two different alignments. So there's the proof of evil deed or the proof of good deed. And later on you'll even get the proof of neutrality. So there's like these three factions that you'll get to play, and or rather three alignments. And each alignment has different factions to it. For example, the good alignment has like the fairies, the elves, and the angels, and the evil guys of like goblin, undead, demons, and all those kinds of things. And basically, what all of these are is basically you get different buildings depending on what your alignment is. So that's just the same going good. Then I get these buildings. You also get the Hall of Legends, which is what every alignment gets. So you don't have to worry about that. So that the ultimate building is always the same. And then once you have an alignment, you can choose a faction. And what the faction really does is it gives you different upgrades. That's pretty much all it does. It gives you different upgrades. And it also has this added bonus that it gives you a new spell, but you know, it's not that important. Even though in a lot of cases there's a lot of builds that like, well, not really builds, but a lot of upgrades make this thing more powerful. But more importantly, each of these factions has a different playstyle associated to it. So right now I chose the Angels, and Angels are all about casting many spells. So you get upgrades here that increase your, let me actually get some money. You'll have some upgrades that like, oh, you now generate more mana with this building, or some of these, but actually multiple buildings that do it. Now this building generates mana, and then it's like, here, now you generate more stuff depending on how many spells you've cast, and so on. And if you have faction coins, it allows you to not only choose a faction by spending faction coins, it also allows you to unlock certain other upgrades in that faction by spending the corresponding faction coins. So if I spend some angel coins, I'll be able to go ahead and buy some more stuff. And I'll actually clear some stuff up here. Now, as you already noticed, holy shit, I have so many upgrades here. Now, throughout the game, there's a ton of different trophies. A lot of them are secret trophies for doing really random things, like what's one here? Have exactly one of each building at any given time, or reach what is that, 100,000 coins without building anything. And by achieving a lot of these random trophies, you get more upgrades that you can then buy all the time. So I just bought a ton of upgrades that I just got for having all these trophies. But back on track. So you also notice that really this stuff right here only really costs angel coins. So what are the other coins doing? Well, you can use the other coins to do something like an exchange, and exchange basically means you spend faction coins that you don't want, and it gives you a multiplier on all of your buildings. So I see like here all buildings do 16.5% more for each Elven exchange. It's additive, not multiplicative. That would be overpowered. And that's usually what you're gonna do when you start playing this game. You just choose a faction, and with the other faction coins you just get some exchanges, you get some buildings, get some upgrades for those buildings, and that's usually how you're going. If you just start, you'll realize that you don't actually gain that much mana, even if you go Angel, which is like the mana faction. But you just sort of deal with it until you get something called gems. Now, gems is basically the whole resetting mechanic. Sorry. Now, if you get a lot of money, then you gain gems, and by resetting, you gain those gems to your gem count, and each gem count makes it so you get more stuff. You get more coins and more faction coins. So that's the whole resetting mechanic. It's nothing too special, but you know, all of these games obviously need to have some sort of like resetting mechanic that you can use to like reset your game and play again with like everything is more powerful. But there's actually something else, because this thing has two reset mechanics. That's the first one, and I can get to the other one later, like way later, because if you play this game for the first time, it probably takes you like a week or more to actually even get to the second reset mechanic. So, something else about this game is there's something called assistance. And as you probably noticed, there's a lot. I'm gonna keep adding stuff to this. I'm gonna talk about something and be like, oh, there's also this, and then there's also this. It's gonna keep happening. Don't worry, guys. So there's also something called the assistants in this game. Sorry. And what the assistants do is, it tells you right here, each assistant just auto-clicks the treasure every second for like, I think it's like 10% of what you're clicking it for. And there's also upgrades that make it so your assistants are more powerful. Basically, you won't have any assistants when you start the game, but when you get 100 of one building, then there'll be a special upgrade that gives you like one assistant. But you can only do that like once for each building. And so when you first play the game, you get up to like what, like 10 assistants or something, or 11, I don't even know. And there'll be other places later on in the game via certain upgrades and stuff where you can get more assistants, but that's usually the amount of assistants that you'll have like at the start. And assistants are pretty good because assistants mean that you can gather faction coins without having to click the treasure all the time. Oh yeah, I've actually talked about how you get faction coins. Well, you get faction coins by clicking the treasure. But when you start the game, you'll have like a 2% chance to get a faction coin. So without assistance, this really takes a long time. So you really want to get assistance. So this doesn't take forever. Now, when it comes to the actual factions, like as I said, each of them has their own playstyle. There are some that are better than others, but really it doesn't matter that much. Just pick one, play around a bit. You're gonna reset at some point anyway. And each faction also has some trophies attributed to them. And there's some trophies for playing all factions, so you want to get those trophies anyway, because trophies work across all games. So when you then play another game like Reset, then you'll be able to get that upgrade again for a different faction, which is really nice. So yeah, that's like no point to just sticking to one faction all the time unless you've already gotten all the trophies. Until you've gotten all the trophies, just keep switching around, do whatever you want. There's nothing really too bad about this, and they're all fairly good. Some of them, obviously, like I said, are a lot better than others. Like Angels are ridiculously powerful once you get a few gems. So yeah, this is like the late game faction, but it's also pretty good early game. And fairies as well. Also demons are good. The other ones are all sort of like but they do that job. Anyway, so something you've also been noticing is that there's a lot of these upgrades with the faction symbol on them right here. And basically, if you get all the upgrades for one faction, then you'll get a trophy which like says, oh, you get all the upgrades for this faction, good job. And then what will happen is you'll unlock the heritage. And heritage is something that can be bought across all playthroughs. You just reset and then you can buy it on anything you play. You can get the good heritage for fairies in when you're playing like a bad character, doesn't matter. And these just give you a lot of bonuses that sort of like, oh, like angels are the mana the mana faction. So you can unlock this thing at any faction to get more mana and stuff like that. And there's also another nice way of how getting more trophies on other factions it will manipulate the way you play the game in a different faction when you've reset the game. So you can already see that there's a lot of stuff going on right here with all of these different factions switching between them, getting trophies that work on different factions. So you've already got quite a bit of stuff going, and this is already easily more than most idle games already have, with as much as like depth is concerned. But it, like I said, it doesn't keep stopping there. It keeps going. So, once you've done all that, you unlock the neutral factions, which also has their own factions, and these factions actually cost, like they sort of like combine two factions into one, so you'll need like a lot more coins from different factions. And once you've done all of that, then something called Excavation is gonna happen, and actually, no, you get Excavation before this. But anyway, Excavation is gonna happen, and what Excavation is, you'll spend money, coins, to do an excavation. And an excavation, all it does is you have a random chance of finding faction coins. That's pretty much what Excavation does itself. But there's something special about it as well, is that when you start excavating, that every few excavates you'll get like certain quest artifacts, and they'll tell you different stuff like, oh, it appears something about it says something about Howl of Legends, and then there's like a 300 here, and these are basically hints on what you need to do to unlock the neutral faction, because the neutral factions have to be unlocked first. So the clues here are, oh, you need 300 ancient 300 Halls of Legends, or this one you need a faction coin, 1 million of it, or have a playtime of 36 hours in one game without resetting and all that stuff. And then you can unlock the neutral factions. And once you've unlocked all the neutral factions, then there's more stuff to find out via Excavations. For some reason it doesn't show anymore, because I've already gotten it, I guess. And if you've done all of that, you get like the ultimate factions, or like the bonus factions, I don't know what they're called, which is like the dwarves and drows, which is dwarves for good and drows for evil. And what these do is basically when you're playing as any of the faction for that alignment, like let's say I'm playing as a good character and I'm angel, then I can get dwarven faction together with that, so you play like two factions at once. So if you play good or evil, you get to play like two factions at once, which is pretty interesting. And that secondary faction, the dwarves and the drows, are pretty powerful, and they do some really interesting stuff. Like make it so that you gain a ridiculous amount of money when you're offline, instead of so you actually want to be offline and not online anymore, because then you actually gain more stuff and stuff like that. And these factions also give you a ton of boost in like how much money you're getting all the time. So yeah, then you do that, and once you've done that, is sort of around the time where you'll be like, hey, there's this really weird button over here that says Reincarnation. It says something about resetting, but I've already reset with Abdicate, which is like the regular reset button, which I've done before to show you all this stuff. And you'll be like, hey, what's this Reincarnation button? And as it turns out, if you reach a certain amount of gems, then you'll get something called the Reincarnation. And what Reincarnation does, it's sort of like a super reset. It's not quite a hard reset, because that's just like deleting your save. It's the super reset, the Reincarnation. What it does is, it puts you back to 0 gems and 0 excavations, and basically allows you to start everything over. But, and that's the important part, all trophies are saved, which means that all the bonuses you get from all your trophies will still be there, and you get more bonuses the more you reincarnate. So, I heard you like resets, so you can reset your resets in order to have an even bigger reset and start over again after you've already started over. And this sounds like this is just prolonging the game, what the fuck? And I would agree with you that this is just prolonging the game artificially if there weren't all these really weird things that happen when you reincarnate. So it's not just the bonuses that are listed here, like all your buildings are now more powerful and your offline production is more powerful, blah blah blah. This is just some added bonuses, or you gain more resistance the more you've reincarnated. And every time you've reincarnated, you need more gems for the next reincarnation. So it's sort of like a curve that you need even more all the time. But the thing is, with every reincarnation, you also, like every second or fourth or something, I don't know, you unlock certain new mechanics. And this is what I was talking about earlier, that even if you've already played for a ridiculous amount of time, suddenly a lot more things are gonna open up. So you reincarnate a bunch, and suddenly there's this thing called challenges, which is like, whoa, where's this coming from? And what challenges are is, well, as the name says, it's a challenge attributed to each of the factions. So, for example, a demon challenge could be like, hey, reach that many faction coins without relying on your gems or stuff like that. And if you manage to do a challenge, which really doing it yourself is pretty hard to figure out because these things are really cryptic, like the hint for this challenge is the Princes of Hell wish to test your skills at gathering coin without outside help. So you need to kind of figure out that this means that you can't rely on gems or any other specific, really specific upgrades, and you have to get like 5,000 faction coins within 3 days or something, I don't know. It even says down there what I've done after I've completed it. But if you've got no idea how to figure out how to like understand what the challenge actually is, just look it up. Just look it up, please. It's like, it makes it easier for everyone. And there's a really good wiki. If you just go to Realm Grinder wiki, you'll find a ton of stuff. And I'd actually suggest doing that because there's a ton of stuff in this game that's like my big gripe about this game. There's a ton of stuff in this game that tries to be cryptic and like secret and hidden, but really it's just stuff that you're just like, how am I supposed to figure this out? Because it's not really hinted at well enough, and for the secret trophies there's not a hint at all. Look at this, there's nothing there. How am I supposed to know that I need to balance 3 coins on my nose for 2 days? Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, look it up. And if you complete a challenge, then you get like a certain buff that is only active if you play as this faction. So if I play Angel, I can use these 2 Angel upgrades. This is in a different faction, but I can still use it because it's an Angel upgrade. It's weird like that, I don't know. And these make your faction even more powerful, so you can be like, oh, I'm only gonna play Demon and get these upgrades for Demon faction, which make me even more powerful, which is really nice. And this is unlocked after reincarnation. Then after more reincarnations, you're gonna be like, hey, what is this, Bloodline? Oh, suddenly I can choose between all of these buffs. Now what Bloodline does is, basically you just get to buy a buff that is activated for your current game until you do a normal reset. And these buffs can be pretty ridiculous. Like 33 mana per second is quite a lot. It's almost doubling. Okay, not almost doubling. It's like 50% more mana regen as the faction that already has way too much mana regen, and it's still 50% more. Wow. This one, you auto-click 3 times per second, and this auto-click does 100 times your regular clicking reward. Like, okay, so I do nothing and do 300% more clicking rewards. That's pretty insane. So you can choose all of these different bloodlines for your current playstyle or whatever you want, and then even get an upgrade for it, which is pretty cool. And you're gonna be like, damn, this is pretty cool. Like, fucking bloodlines? Damn, I love bloodlines. They're pretty powerful, man. And you're gonna be like, well, what else is there? What else is there? I can keep reincarnating, right? I can keep reincarnating, so why not do that? And then you're gonna be like, hey, what is this? Mercenaries? Let me show you what mercenaries are, because mercenaries are like what? They're like what? The faction. So basically what they were like is, well, all these factions that we have right now, they're pretty cool, but all these factions sort of like keep to themselves. They only have their own upgrades, and even though there are some upgrades that you can choose between them, that's not interesting enough. So what Mercenary faction is, it allows you to choose upgrades from any faction in the game. So I'm gonna be here like, okay, each faction has 3 basic upgrades, 3 medium upgrades, and 3 like really good upgrades, and they all have their own spell. So if you pick Mercenary, what you get to be is like, okay, you get to choose 4 basic upgrades, and you can choose them from any upgrades in the game. So you can be like, okay, you choose 4 basic upgrades out of the basic upgrades, then you choose 4 upgrades out of the medium upgrades, and 4 upgrades out of the really good upgrades. And you can sort of, and this is also where the whole big end game sort of comes in. And you also get to choose 2 spells from all the different spells in the game. And you should really look this up because there's a shit ton of really interesting builds that you can do with this. So obviously by changing what sort of upgrades you pick, you can drastically change your playstyle around. So you can see like, okay, I want to make a build that is only like working when I'm offline and stuff like that. So you just pick upgrades that make you really good when you're offline. And there's a ton of these as well. And then you pick spells that are really good for that, and a bloodline that's really good for that. Or you go like, oh, I want to be really good at casting spells. So you take a lot of the angel upgrades as well as some of the other upgrades that make spell casting really powerful, and that makes them really incredibly powerful combos. And there's some really interesting builds out there. If you just check also on the Realm Grinder wiki, there's like a list of mercenary builds, and you can look at that as well. And also, if you don't want to copy another build, you can also just make your own build, though it's not guaranteed to be good at all. You might be able to just make a really bad build if you just pick some really bad upgrades. But hey, that's part of the freedom. It wouldn't be freedom if you couldn't be fucking up sometimes. So that's a lot of stuff that's already happening. And then it turns out what they did with an update is, well, first of all I have to go over something else. This is in-game shop that allows you to buy stuff with real money. So credits is like real money. So you can like time warp, you can instantly gain gems without having to reset. But all of these not very important. The important part is the rubies. Now rubies, usually what they did earlier before some patch came in, is that they just made you generate more coins. And they were like, that's not very interesting, is it? So what they did then is they said, okay, rubies are now spent on special upgrades that makes gain like more maximum mana, more mana per second, more resistance, stuff like that. And you're gonna be like, oh come on, you didn't yeah, that's my name actually. This channel is called Soul Reaver, blah, blah, blah. Oh, come on, Rusty, you didn't actually buy rubies, because I see that you have rubies. So, did you buy them? No, because that's where the patch came in. They had like a really weird patch where it's like, okay, now you can find rubies on excavations, and then you can use these rubies to get upgrades, which is really nice, that you otherwise would have paid for. Isn't that great? So, something else about this game is, at some point there was like this whole thing going on with like, oh man, my save file got corrupted, now I've lost multiple weeks of work, and you're gonna be like, oh damn, my save file can get corrupted? Or if I go to somewhere else and then come back to my PC after I've loaded somewhere else, like did some copying with the game files and stuff like that, or the cookies, and then be like, oh man, my games file is gone now, or it's corrupted, then they actually put something in the game where you can like, do a cloud save. So basically you can log into the cloud with your, well, I'm playing some Congregate, so with your Congregate ID, and then that cloud is bound to your Congregate ID, and wherever you go, if you just log into that Congregate account and log into the cloud, you can just load your save from anywhere, and since it's on the cloud, it's not gonna get corrupted, so you don't have to worry about losing your save like that, which is really nice. And also there's a ton of stats in this game if you like to if you want to look at that. Sadly, there's some stats that aren't in there, like total time being spent, evil, total, but between reincarnations, because sadly this total resets with reincarnations for some reason. Yeah, that's a bit something that I was missing, because it does actually count between reincarnations as well, but stats always completely reset on reincarnations. That's a bit sad. Anyway, with all of this stuff in the game, and there's still more that I haven't even gotten to. I've played this game for months. Well, not actually sitting on the PC for months, like checking in every now and then, but you know what I mean. So even though I've had so much time in this game, there's still more to come in later reincarnations that I haven't even gotten to. So, like, more challenges that I haven't unlocked yet. I can't even do this. I haven't unlocked them yet. And there's even something else that I don't quite remember what it is, but damn. There's some really weird stuff that's gonna happen later on. And if you're like, man, this game has so much to it, but I feel like someday I'm just gonna, like, be done with it. Well, this game is being frequently updated, and it has been frequently updated for about a year now. So, you know when the last update was? A day ago. You know when the last update before that was? Like 2 weeks earlier. So they're updating this stuff like really often. And yeah, I've already this thing. There's this big mechanic in the game, like the research that's been in there for like half a year, and I've been trying to keep up and get to the research part, which apparently also does a ton to change the game, but I haven't even gotten to it in like the last few months because it takes so many reincarnations. So this game, with all of the really weird stuff going on, all of this depth to it, all of these new mechanics that keep being introduced, and there's still more mechanics on the horizon, with how long everything takes, but there's still always stuff going on. It's not just like you buy a bunch of things and then you go AFK for 2 weeks or something. It's actually like you buy something and like, oh, in about an hour I can reset and do everything again, and then it's still in like another hour till the next reset. So you can like keep actually doing stuff to like progress, and that's really interesting. So Realm Grinder, in short, it has a lot of stuff to it. It's very long, but there's still always something going on. This is like the titan of idle games right now, and you should definitely check it out. But as a disclaimer, if you lose a ton of your lifetime to a game like this, it's not my fault, it's just the way the game is. So that was that. See you guys next time. Goodbye.